While I was in the hotel last night, working on the beginning of this presentation, suddenly I had a wonderful time. There was a bit of a creaking, and my shirt on the wall started rolling back and forth. The whole room went around like this. It was like being at Disneyland on a ride. It's the first time I've ever been in a serious earthquake in 18 times I've been here since the accident. And I honestly had a lot of fun, because I knew some things. The measurements, I can put it this way, the measurements I had were that in Japan, buildings are built very, very well. And they're built well by the builders, the materials are good, the construction is very sound, the regulations are extremely good, and the legislation is good. So I trust the builders, the operators, and the government. And so it's a situation of risk where I trust everybody, and I wasn't worried. I think that's where we're headed, and I hope we get there in this sort of situation where we can all be comfortable with the choices that have been made. We'll see. So, Ms. Bond, who has left, called the whole process of managing and collecting measurements a light. She called it building a new life. And I think there was a reference to that just now. Measurements are actually part of understanding what will become the new life. And I think they're a light, if I can put it that way, to bring things forward. But it's not only about the numbers. I think we said that on several occasions. So what to do? Stay or go? I think that's a big part of the basic question that we have here. Deciding whether to live in an accident-affected area is an important and very difficult choice. I think we've all experienced that as this is going on. Clear understanding of as much of the complexity of the situation as possible. Everyone said, will help you make the decision, help you to make decisions you can live with. And that's part of the important thing. You have to make a decision and then be happy with the decision, one way or the other. Decisions will be individual, and they need to be respected. Reaching understanding and taking decisions can take a long time. It's been 4 years. There are still people who are trying to understand what the situation is. Individuals may decide to live in an accident-affected area or may decide not to live in an accident-affected area. Any decision needs to be respected. We've said that in several of the dialogues, and again, it came out in the discussions that we had here. And people are not looking for pity. They're looking for support for their decision. That was something that I was impressed with, somebody said yesterday. Recovery is about having a normal life. We've talked a lot about health, we've talked a lot about risk, we've talked a lot about other things. What I think it really means is having a normal life. Someone said, I don't want to fight with radiation, I just want to do the best that I can. I thought that was a very nice quote. The new normality, which is can be a completely different situation, is now normal. A normal life is one where you do all that is reasonable to have good well-being. And by well-being, that's the WHO defines that as partly to do with health, having good health, and we've talked a lot about that. But it's also being happy with the way things are, having a society that supports you, having a job, having a good life, in essence. And you need to be satisfied that you are doing enough to maintain that well-being. That's what a normal life is all about. The new lifestyle becomes a state of mind. In fact, if radiation is the most important thing considered when deciding what to do, then perhaps you should not stay in an accident-affected area. As was said a minute ago, stress of being worried about radiation all the time is bad for your health. So if you strongly feel that it's the most important risk, then maybe you shouldn't be in an affected area. And that should be an accepted decision. Focus on recovery is on individuals. An individual family needs to understand their own specific circumstances. We said that time and again. There are many different discussions that came today. Some families are, how shall I say, rich. Some families are not so rich. They have different circumstances. Average values represent no one's specific circumstances. I'm American. This is perhaps an average American family. This is my family. I don't believe there's much resemblance. So the average value is not where we're going. In terms of information and understanding, measurements are not the end of the story, but rather the beginning of a conversation. I think that came out quite clearly through a lot of the discussions. Information to explain measurements needs to come from a trusted source and should address an individual's concerns. Individuals will need support, talking with experts, friends, family, neighbors, to reach understanding. Understanding radiation and radiation risks is very important to making decisions about living in an affected area. All that's important. Understanding individual dose is the first step to regaining control. So that begins by taking individual measurements with D shuttles or baby scan and things along those lines. The next step is explaining. Someone has to explain what individual dose means, what do the measurements mean, how do they affect you? Using curves or whatever it could be, in fact, quite confusing. And the next step is to understand individual dose measurements, and eventually people will have a eureka moment and feel that they understand what the dose means for them. And that may be different from person to person. Things to remember about radiation. Radiation is complex, and it will take an effort to understand it. Someone said that they want to understand it, and that's very important. Understanding is step by step. It may well take a long time, as I said earlier. Human-to-human connections seem to work the best. When people can talk to someone with whom they have a relationship that's trusted. And there is no final answer. Uncertainty is a scientific principle that will always be present. Well, maybe. Uncertainty is everywhere. Health and risk are related to annual dose, not to dose rate. There's been a lot of focus on taking ambient dose measurements and whatnot that are important for understanding what the total dose is, and that's where you want to relate that to risk. Learning can be fun, with good friends, with good food. So the positive aspects of these things are important also. And measurements can in fact capture radiation. We talk about radiation being a dose. I look at it as a dragon. But measurements can be part of putting the dragon in a cage. I like PowerPoints. Measurement results are not always what is expected. Sensi were expected to be very bad, but if you look, you can find good edible sensi. And I hope I spelled that correctly. And I hope this is a real sensi. I got it from Google. We'll have to hope that that's correct. Measuring individual doses suggests that they may be much lower than people fear. So if people wearing D shuttles discover that they and their neighbors and others have doses that are larger than they were, but maybe not as large as they thought they might be. Super science students are coming to save the day. They talked about the need to help Tokyo and Sendai understand the situation, the need to help overseas markets to understand the situation, and the need to be proud of the products from Fukushima Prefecture. And we think the students are going to save the day, and we also learned that all parents want their children to study at Fukushima High School. We had a lot of that. Tools for reconstruction. This is my last slide. Hope and persistence. That seems to come out of the discussion. Thank you very much, and I hope that's